Materials supplied by Microsoft Corporation may be used for internal review, analysis, or research only. Any editing, reproduction, publication, rebroadcast, public showing, internet, or public display is forbidden and may violate copyright law.
Like I said, I'm Tyler Furtwängler. I'm one of the developers of Taptitude. It's a mobile game, and I'll go ahead and go through some of the features of it if you haven't heard of it yet. But this talk is about in-app purchase and how you can sort of design your app around in-app purchase and different design considerations that we sort of went through when we made our application. There's a lot of them, so hopefully it's informative to all of you guys as well. So I work on Taptitude with my three brothers. It's a game that sort of started as a hobby for the four of us 2 years ago, and we've been updating this game pretty regularly ever since then. And it's not our full-time job, though. I work actually over in office on the SharePoint team, and two of my other brothers are ex-Microsoft employees as well. So, you know, it's just a hobby, but it's a fun one. Things we're going to talk about today, we're basically going to go over what Taptitude is for those that don't know what it is. We're going to also discuss different monetization strategies, like a free game versus a paid game, different design choices you might want to make around that, and then also some examples, and then we'll follow up with questions. If you guys have any questions throughout, just raise your hand. Try to get through them. We can do it as we go. All right, so what is Taptitude? Like I said, 2 years ago we started making this game, and to be honest, it was kind of crappy. We released the game sort of with the idea that we're going to continually evolve Taptitude and be sort of the one-stop shop for all your different gaming needs. And when we first released it, I think we had 10 mini games in it, and they were very, very basic. And the UI wasn't quite right, and things weren't perfect. But we had the goal in mind that we're going to update it every single week, and we've held pretty true to that. We're maybe at like 2 weeks now, update intervals. But we started out with maybe 10 mini games, like I said, and over the course of the 2 years, we're now up to, I think, 80 mini games and maybe more now, and tons of different upgrades and different things within it. So I'll go ahead and demo Taptitude so we can sort of get through it. Let me switch it over. There we go. Should be good. All right, so this is Taptitude. The first thing you'll notice is, well, we got an ad up at the top. It's actually a house ad. Interesting. We do have ads in this game, and the majority of our money actually comes through ads still. And I'll sort of get to why that is later on, but I'll just demo the game. So here's our main menu. You can see we have a store. If you go into there, different things you can buy. I'll go over each one of these in depth sort of once we talk about why we chose them, but for now, there's a store. So you go into play, and what we made was a tiered-based system where you need to unlock all the different games that are available. If you scroll down, you can see here they start becoming locked. We have, I think, 80 games overall, and that includes a bunch of what we call retired games, which are games that we thought aren't really up to par anymore now that we've sort of introduced new ones. So we move them over to the retired section. Oops. But all of these different games are all unique, and we made each one of them sort of as we went over the last 2 years. So each week or each month, we might introduce a new game, and then we'd go and update that app with new content for that game and sort of move on. And we did this, we did it in this way instead of making each one of these a new game for a lot of different reasons. But it's helped out a lot over the past just because we only have to maintain that one game. We don't have to go and update Bally Madness here on all the different platforms. We can just go update it once and push it out to all the platforms on one app. So I'll give you an example of sort of how you play one. Here's Bally Madness. I don't know if you've ever played the game Peggle, but it's very similar. Slide this thing, aim, and you can shoot. Bounces off, blah, blah, blah. Gives you some stuff and calls it good. Now, what we built into it from the very beginning even was an upgrade system that was pretty rich, where every game you can buy a whole bunch of different upgrades in it, and it's all earnable. Like what I just did there got me some coins, and the coins can go through and you can buy things with them. Here you see, here's an upgrade called Double Ball and Explosion. Click on them. You can go buy it with the coins, which I don't have enough of, or you can buy it with these credits. And that's where the in-app purchase comes in. Every single thing from the very beginning, even before in-app purchase, had this system where you can purchase them with earnable coins. And only recently were we able to actually go and allow you to buy them with credits. So here's where you can go and spend your credits and actually purchase that. But we also have a whole bunch of stuff that don't even influence the game's dynamic, but just make it kind of fun, like this. Here's a Santa hat you can put on him. It costs a credit, not a big deal. And then we also have leaderboards for each one of these games, where you can go through and see what the top scores are in this game. You can also go back in and backend is actually, we started it out, it's a good question. We started out running it from some dude's apartment. We call it some dude's apartment, where it was just a box underneath some guy's desk, and it happened to run, SQL, and it had some web services that we wrote and hacked together. Most of my brothers, when we started this, they didn't have a lot of server experience, so they wrote it, and we all were working on different things. So it's not it wasn't the best designed. Since then, though, we've actually moved on to SQL Azure and Windows Azure. And so now we're a little bit more scalable, and we feel a lot better about not having to worry about him accidentally flipping a switch and having our services go down. And we've had really good experience with SQL Azure and Windows Azure. Basically, we just took our existing thing that was under some guy's desk, and we just said publish, and it went up there, and everything went well. We also have stats. We keep track of a whole bunch of stuff inside of Taptitude. Simple things like how much time have you played in Taptitude, all the way to like really, really granular things like how many fish have you collected in our fish feeding game. And each one of those, actually, if you go in, there's a leaderboard for all of them. So here's Bally Madness's playtime, which shows you how many, like I said, SQL Azure is great. No. So here's how much time people have spent inside of this particular mini game. So here you can see that this guy named Tibbs has spent 10 full days just inside of Taptitude playing this one game. So you can see that some of our games get a lot of users, a lot of playtime, and other games not so much. And we sort of use that information to judge which ones go into the retired section so that we can keep the ones that are interesting towards the top, basically. Any questions on just general Taptitude, or you guys pretty good on that? All right, so that's Taptitude. There we go.
How big is this? How the size of the package?
So we actually reuse as much as we can because we want to maintain underneath the over-the-air limit for downloads, which I think is actually pretty big now on Windows Phone. It might be up to like 50 megabytes. I think our Windows Phone version ships around 7 megabytes, and then we ship on all the other platforms. And because we're using Mono Game and Mono, it goes up to 50 megabytes, I think, on iOS. So it's really close to that limit on iOS.
And so when you have updates for each of the games, is the update significantly smaller than 7 megabytes, or is it?
The update, so I believe, and this is sort of a Windows Phone question I'm not sure of, I think you have to re-download the entire package. We only change like a few core components within it each time, so there could be some optimization around just downloading the 3 DLLs we changed versus all of the content that came with it. You'll see that though, like here we have all these game icons that scroll down all the way across, and we do try to reuse them to try to keep our package size small. So like here, we really just have a single image plus all of our game icons, and we kind of threw that into a game called Mahjong, classic Mahjong. So we don't actually have like the unique tiles like some games would for this game, but we use our own in-game art assets to reproduce another game. All right, so that's Taptitude. Next thing we're going to talk about is free versus paid. One of the things that we struggled with a lot was how do we make money off of this? It was sort of our hobby to begin with, and we weren't expecting to make a lot of money. We didn't plan anything really from the beginning. We just wanted to have fun and make a fun game. But as soon as we started spending a little bit more time on it, we were thinking, well, how can we start to make money on this? The very first thing is, do we make a free game or do we make a paid game? We actually released Taptitude to start with a paid game. I think it was a 99-cent game, if I remember correctly, and that one didn't turn out very well. We had a trial on the game, so people could go in and get the trial. We just didn't see a high download counts, really. And even those that did download it didn't always translate to a purchase of the game. So it's hard to sort of justify how much money we're making on it. So we quickly switched over from a paid game to a free game. And then we saw a dramatically large download, or like increase in downloads just from switching to a free game. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I think paid games aren't to be like discounted in that you shouldn't do a paid game or a paid app. I just think that you got to think about how the users are really going to use your app, or how like niche is your market that you're working in. I think paid apps work really well if you have something that maybe isn't out on the market yet, or you're the only one providing it, or even like you're the best in some area. People are willing to pay for that type of thing, but it's hard to spread that around because people tend to gloss over the paid section. And what we notice is it's even hard to spread it by word of mouth. Like you're on a bus or something, you hand somebody a card that says, hey, download my game. And they go look at it, pop up their phone, costs $2.99, they're not gonna think twice. They're not gonna go get it because you told them to. So it's a lot harder to tell people to go get your game when it's paid. The upside of that is that you get the money up front, and you know pretty much after somebody's paid for it, if you get enough downloads, you're making pretty good money if you can continue up a good pace of downloads on a paid app. Free games, on the other side, are really good at getting downloads. Like you can spread it really easily. You can do t-shirts, I guess. You can also do like the tags, different RFID tags or the visual tags or whatever other things. Hand somebody a card on the bus, go tell them to get it. And that actually works out pretty well. We actually did flyers at the very beginning and spread it around all the Microsoft buildings. I don't know how much that helped. But anyways, once you get the users, you need to be able to monetize on them. So you kind of have to go a different route. And so we did the ad route. And IAP fits in there as well. And it doesn't mean exclusively to use IAP in a free app. It just tends to work better because in a paid app, you're going to already have money from a user. They're going to feel kind of like, I already paid for this. I'm not going to go buy more content unless it's something like a comic book app or things like that. So everything we say here is sort of our experience, and it may not fit into every app category. I can think of a lot of ones where pay per content inside of a paid app might make sense, like a comic book. So, yep.
When you moved the app from being paid to free, yep. Did the users that already paid for the app got angry or something?
No. I mean, we had so few of them. I don't know how many we could have angered, but it became a free app, and I think we actually released a separate app that was free. So we started to maintain the old paid one for a while, but we weren't seeing large amount of downloads. We weren't continually seeing downloads. We ended up just taking it off the marketplace altogether, and then we released a free version. And another thing about the experience we had with free versus paid is when we did switch to free, we sort of tried to start off and flood the market a little bit, in that we have a ton of games, as you saw. And so we would release different packs. Like tier 1 would become a pack of a game, and that became a separate game in the marketplace. And we would do that every once in a while. It turns out we think that actually hurt us more than it helped, in that it spread out our user counts across all these different apps. And now we have reviews for some tier 1 game that weren't in our main game, so it doesn't look quite as nice. As well as our download counts were just spread out across all of these different apps. So when we finally condensed down to that one final Taptitude Unlimited app that we have today, we saw that it increased the user counts a lot more, and we got better reviews, and we could focus on one thing. So, the thing to think about with the free apps, though, is that we use ads, but the amount of money you can make from a single user in ads is actually pretty low. We are lucky to get maybe 20 cents, 25 cents, 20 cents off of a user for the lifetime of the application. And that isn't to say that we don't make more than that off of particular users. Like you saw the guy who spent 10 days in our app. He's making us more than $1. But the average user, maybe 20, 25 cents. So you kind of want to supplement that with maybe an in-app purchase or two. And so a single in-app purchase can actually be equal to a lot of free users' time. If you do the quick math, it's like something like we get 25 cents for every 1,000 ads that we show, right? We can only show an ad every 30 seconds. So that's going to take 4,000 ad impressions or 2,000 minutes of time to make a single dollar inside of Taptitude, right? And so 2,000 minutes is a lot of time. If we have a bunch of people playing our game for 30-minute periods, it's like 60 users we would need just to make $1. And that's pretty significant. But there is a little bit of a sort of a alternate side, which is that it's reoccurring, and that like you saw our big users spend 10 days or even more inside of Taptitude. And so those guys, over the course of the lifetime, might give us a lot more than that. But in-app purchases can do the same thing. And so we also incorporated those. And so there we go. One thing we want to sort of talk about is we have never tried to make Taptitude be sort of restrictive by using in-app purchase. And I think that it's a bad practice, at least for our type of an app, to try to do that. So we want to really enhance the gameplay and not restrict it in any way. You know, too frequently I download a game that says it's free and it's like 2 seconds into the game it wants me to spend $1 on something. It's like, it's not really a free game if the first thing you have to do is buy something. So we make it so that everyone can earn pretty much everything in Taptitude. There's a few things that you have to pay for, like removing the ads, but pretty much everything else is earnable. And so it's like we use, bless you, we use the time that the user needs to spend to earn things to make money from ads, but then those who don't want to spend the time to make things, they'll go and buy it with in-app purchase. And so it's sort of, you get the best of both worlds by doing that. And then, let's see here. The other thing about, excuse me, enhancing it by making them earn it and also providing the ability to purchase it is that they can sort of feel like they earn things and have something to do all the time. And if you excuse me, force them to earn it, then they're going to feel much more likely to go and purchase it so that they don't have to waste their time. Not waste, but you know, if they want to get to the next level, then they're going to go and purchase something to make it quicker. A few different things we use to enhance our game and make it a little bit more fun is customization options are great in an app or in games. People love to show off, you know, like, oh, I'm the best, look at me, you know. And so they'll go out and buy specific leaderboard effects or buy icons to make them stand out from everyone else. And they don't actually impact the gameplay in any significant way, right? So these things are really good to allow those power users to show off. You can also improve the gameplay by removing ads, which is something that Taptitude actually does do. The only problem with that is that you sort of need to think about how your game is going to be played. And so, go back here. So in our game, we have a lot of different options for purchases. You know, not a lot, but we have a few different options. We have starter pack, and Taptitude Gold's actually the one that will remove the ads from the game. So we price it at about $2.99. So it's kind of expensive. It's not super cheap. And the reason why we put it up so high, like it's not a 99-cent purchase, is that our power users are really the ones that are making a lot of our money. And those are the ones that are going to be also purchasing the Taptitude Gold. And so you got to sort of find the level of where do you think your users are going to buy it, and then how do you make it so it's worth it? Our average user, like I said, 20 cents per user. So if we can get them to buy even a 99-cent thing, we're doing way better than we could on ads. But not everyone's going to buy anything, and not everyone's going to be removing the ads. So that's one of the options you can do, is to remove the ads or to do other things. We actually included a lot more in Taptitude Gold, which I'll show you in a bit. Go back to here. All right, so this is Windows Phone. Let's talk about Windows Phone in-app purchase. In-app purchase in Windows Phone is actually pretty unique. They added a couple of things that other platforms don't have, which we as Taptitude really enjoyed. One of which is keywords. I don't know if you guys, I don't know who all here is familiar with in-app purchase, but they actually added a few things that the other platforms don't have, like keywords and a tag field. The keywords are really useful for if you want to say, you saw the in-app purchase, we have coins and credits and Taptitude Gold and all these other things. You can sort of tag those in-app purchase things with keywords and say, this one gives you coins, this one gives you a hat, and this one gives you coins and a hat. And then when you go to query your in-app purchase using their APIs, you can say, give me all the ones that have keyword coins. So it's actually pretty useful to have keywords. And then the tag blob, which is unique to Windows Phone, you can store any arbitrary field or any data you want in there. And in Taptitude, we store full-on JSON data, and this data contains exactly what you get for that reward. So we call it, you know, starter pack actually is a great example of that. Man, switching can take a while. So starter pack here gives you a whole bunch of stuff. If you click into it, it's a free in-app purchase that gives you just some coins, gives you a shovel, gives you a mega drill, a bunch of stuff you can use within Taptitude. And all of that data is actually stored as in that tag blob of JSON, so that when our client goes to pick out the in-app purchases, it doesn't know exactly what each individual item is. It just says, hey, whatever it is, this is the rewards that are within it. In addition, you can store other information like, is this thing on sale, or what icon to use, and we end up using that over here. You can see Taptitude Gold says it's on sale with that little flag next to it. So we store a bunch of information inside of this tag. Unfortunately, the other platforms don't support that, so it's not exactly the same thing on all platforms, but really useful stuff by doing that. And then lastly, I want to talk about is Taptitude is actually a Windows Phone 7 application. It's built on XNA. It's a Windows Phone 7 application. So I don't know if anybody else out there has a Windows Phone 7 application or is building one or wants to support the old devices, but you can't do in-app purchase on the old devices. And so there's actually kind of a tricky thing we have to do in order to ship a Windows Phone 7 application that accesses Windows Phone 8 features. And it's kind of a weird thing. If you want to know more about that, let me know. We actually have an MSDN article and a Channel 9 video talking specifically about that point, sort of how to light up the Windows Phone 8 experiences using Windows Phone 7 applications. And it's got code sample you can download and a few other things. But we end up having to use reflection onto a Windows Phone 8 DLL inside of our Windows Phone 7 app. So it's kind of interesting. We are also cross-platform. And let me switch back over. We ship on all of the major platforms. We ship on Windows Phone 7, Windows Phone 8, Windows 8, Android, and iOS, which is kind of interesting because not everything is the same, works the same way. I mentioned the store as one of them. The tag and that keywords field isn't the same on all the platforms. And that isn't the only difference in in-app purchase you're going to find across the platforms. We actually noticed that consumables are things that you can purchase more than once, and it uses them right then and there, versus a durable, which you can buy once and you own forever. If you go and look at like Windows Phone 7 and Windows Phone 8 and Windows 8, there's even differences between those two platforms, both Microsoft platforms. And one thing to be aware of is that Windows 8 doesn't actually have consumables. They have a similar model where you can say, here's a durable that you can purchase, and it has a expiration time. If you set that really low to like a day, you can repurchase it every day, but it's not a true consumable. So a few differences there. Most of the other platforms have true consumables like Android and iOS. The other thing is subscriptions aren't supported on Windows Phone yet, that I know of. And then also free purchases are only supported on Windows Phone. So you saw that starter pack that we had is actually a true in-app purchase that goes through the regular purchase model and is just free. It doesn't cost anything. So if I click into it, I can actually say, get this. And it actually goes through their in-app purchase model. So the interesting thing with the different platforms is that you're going to find a few different subtle differences that you're going to have to work around if you want to ship multi-platform. And Windows Phone actually has a really good feature set that they've talked about, or that they ship. Let's talk about numbers for Taptitude in general. We have over 1 million downloads on Windows Phone, most of which are actually a lot of which are Windows Phone 7 devices. And so in-app purchase the numbers I'll show you aren't directly translatable to 1.1 million all being able to purchase things. But we do see a good trend that's starting with in-app purchase and with Windows Phone, which is that our overall in-app purchases have been increasing pretty steadily. And I think as more users start to switch over to Windows Phone 8 and whatever else is in the future, we're going to start to see that number increase as well. And we see our users starting to slowly switch over too, from Windows Phone to Windows Phone 8. Overall, we've made around something, not crazy numbers on the in-app purchase compared to our ad money, but it's been increasing and it's still relatively new for even from Taptitude standpoint. We just shipped in-app purchase a few months back, maybe like 5 or 6 months back now, but. The amount of money that we actually make on Windows Phone for the user from in-app purchase is low, but other platforms that supported it from the beginning, we see a little bit better data on. Windows 8's doing okay. We actually have only 65,000 Windows 8 downloads. It's a little bit different market, I think, for a game like ours, which is just a mini game on a full-fledged OS. I think things that have more productivity or even, I don't know, different types of apps might have a different experience than we have on Windows 8. And we've been generally just a full-on mobile app until now. Android we also ship on. We have really low numbers because we just shipped Android and iOS in the last month, I want to say. We have 6.5 thousand Android downloads, only 3,000 of which are actually active. Still have the app installed. But we do see that we have maybe $500 so far actually in in-app purchase just from that, which on Android is interesting because that's more money than we make in ads. So our ad money in Android is significantly less than we make on Windows Phone, but our in-app purchase has been better, generally, for the amount of users that we have using it. So that's an interesting stat.
But the products are different?
Nope, same products. I think it's just that we're still relatively new on Windows Phone as far as getting users onto things that can purchase the in-app purchases. And so we're going to see the trend on Windows Phone. I mean, we do make more money, obviously, on Windows Phone from in-app purchase than on Android or the other ones. It's the amount of users that we have total is so much bigger, it's hard to sort of justify how the numbers really relate to each other.
So what do you use for ads on Android?
We use Android, we use Smato, and also AdMob. And we also ship iOS and AdMob with iOS. And we actually see that our numbers on iOS are even better than our Android ones using the same platform. So it could just be an Android thing. iOS, we just shipped on this month, I believe. Actually, yeah, towards the end of May. And our downloads are still relatively low. I think we have 3,500 downloads. But we're seeing pretty good in-app purchases on iOS as well. You know, with a new product, I think they get in there and they want to see what we have. A lot of the users that we have on Windows Phone have had our game for a very long time. We've been out for 2 years, and we've been constantly updating it. So they've already accumulated all of these coins that they earned before in-app purchase was ever available. And so they don't really see a need to purchase anything yet because they have all these coins piled up. And so I think with Windows Phone, we're going to have to rely on the new users to sort of get in-app purchase. So our old users don't even matter anymore. And so it's kind of a trend that we have to pay attention to. Also, you can't tell from here, but each one of our in-app purchases, actually this is a good slide to show this. Our number one, obviously, is the free starter pack. And these numbers here are a little bit subjective because this is just like a month of May view. We saw when we first released Windows 8 a lot more purchases than what is in this view. But we have approximately around, you know, maybe $500 total we've made on in-app purchase on Windows 8, which isn't terrible considering the number of users that we have. But the same thing is true on Android and iOS. So going back to the examples, the reason why we chose a starter pack and why I think it's one of the most important ones for us and for other people is the starter pack gets you into the store. You know, we sort of promote the starter pack more than anything else just because that's the one that's free and gets them used to going through the workflow of purchasing something, and it doesn't cost them anything. So it's like once they get used to getting that free starter pack, now they're going to know how to get back to the store, know how to go in there and what the workflow is to purchase something. And so when they run out of credits, they can say, well, I know where to get credits, right? It's in the store because I just purchased something from there. So I think it's pretty important, or at least useful, to have maybe a free one that doesn't give you that much, but it's worthwhile to think about, you know, do you want to give away something for free and just call it an in-app purchase? Our users definitely use that one more than the other ones. The other one is Taptitude Gold. If you click on it, it's the most expensive one. It removes the ads. But in addition to removing the ads, it'll also give you that customization that we talked about, and that all of your leaderboard effects give you like a gold wavy look to them. And we get so many emails from our customers saying, hey, how do I get my name to be gold and wavy? You know? And a lot of them are on Windows Phone 7, so we have to say, sorry, nothing you can do. But you know, those are the type of users that see that and go, how do I get that? And they go into the store and find Taptitude Gold. So it's something that doesn't actually change the gameplay in any significant way. Like, all it does is add some sort of uniqueness to your name. But people really enjoy to show off and give them a way to do that. We're also considering using Taptitude Gold as sort of a beta customer program, to where, you know, you saw our tier system back here. We release a new game, you know, once every month or twice a month, and it's almost guaranteed to have a bug or two in it. You know, we're just 4 hobby developers trying to make a game. And so if we release a game that has a bug in it, it looks pretty bad, especially if the person who just downloaded the game doesn't know that this is the game we just made, right? So the top game you see here is the new release. That's the one we just built. And so what we're thinking about doing with Taptitude Gold is actually saying only the Taptitude Gold members can play the new release, and everyone else has to wait like a week or two. And what that would actually do is it lowers the bar for us to introduce bugs to new users and allows us to sort of focus on making games, and we ship bugs, we can fix them. So, and then lastly, you saw in the store, we sell a whole bunch of credits, and that's actually what we make the most money on, which is the credits. When you go play our game, you know, there's all those different upgrades you saw, They all cost varying amounts of money that you can earn inside of the game, but also you can just pay for them pretty easily with credits. And so we give you 10 credits to start when you play the game, and you can spend them as you want. And if you run out, you can come back to the store and buy more. And what we see is that a lot of users actually, instead of earning the stars to get through the tiers, to unlock these later on ones, they'll just go right in and buy them using the credits. And so then they can bypass the entire time constraint on earning the stars in all of the previous games. And what we see is a lot of users just like certain games, you know. We ship a lot, we don't know what everyone likes, so if they really want to play a, I don't know, what's a good one? A Sudoku. A lot of users just like to go in there and play some puzzle game that they already know how to play. Well, they can go skip down right to it, unlock it, and start playing it. And so once you run out of those 10 credits, though, you sort of have to go back to the store and buy more of them. And so our number one thing is just selling credits. It's another in-game currency that we sort of invented. And then lastly, you can do hard to unlock things. An in-app purchase, for instance, where, you know, might take you 2 weeks to go and do something to create in a game. You can just sell it to them right then and there for $1. And a lot of times, users will go ahead and do that if they don't want to spend the time on it. And then, any questions? Oh, yep.
So the one to remove the ads, how many downloads did you get on that?
I don't know if I have the numbers with me right now, but I know it's our number 2 seller on iOS, which is the one that's the newest one out and the one that we think is the most comparable as far as numbers, just because, like I said, on Windows Phone they have tons of coins already, so it's hard to use those numbers. But I would say that even on Windows Phone, it's either our number 2 or 3 thing. I think number 1 is still the 100 pack of credits, and also starter pack, which is free, so we don't really count that one. Yep.
2 questions. One, do you do any sort of other A/B testing or types of experiments to figure out what works, what doesn't work?
That's a great question. For in-app purchase, we're still trying to work out the kinks. Definitely, we've switched around some of the pricing models of the credits, and we've also sort of tried to experiment with different things we can give them in the game. And the most thing that we're trying to do is sort of push credits as the thing that you want to own. And we see that our users definitely want them. If you go into one of our most popular games, Fish Feeder, that's what the flames represent, and you go and you look at some of the upgrades you can get. Oh, sorry, my bad. When you play this game, you can buy a second fish tank. It's like a whole other area where you can store your fish, and it's basically a Tamagotchi style game. But you can't go into that second fish tank unless you purchase a tank, and that one costs 50 credits. And so our first goal that we've been trying to sort of push is make it so people need to have credits. And then once they need to have credits, then we are trying to figure out how to sell those. And we have noticed that with our recent change in the price model of those, we have gotten a better-ish purchase rate. But we're still pretty new into experimenting with different styles of purchases.
Not at the same time. You don't do the same percent of users going to get that.
Yep. No, we don't do it at the same time. Definitely not. Although I think that's a good idea to try out, but something that we sort of have been focusing more on the games and less on the in-app purchase at this time. But we are going to, as ad revenue, I don't know if you guys have apps or have tried to rely on ad revenue, it goes up and it goes down. As it sort of is in the lulls, we try to focus more on how do we get more in-app purchase, because that's the thing that's more constant. Our ad revenue can vary day to day based on some market demand, but in general, our in-app purchases are pretty stable as far as the number that we get per day. And so that's something that was more reliable than in-app purchase, but currently for us, it's less profitable. But that's just because I think our app is heavily Windows Phone 7 users.
A little bit unrelated, but do you do any sort of research or per user customization to the furthering of the games? Like if someone plays Sudoku a lot, maybe wants to play chess or something.
We haven't yet. I think that's another good idea to do. What we sort of used to have, and we still do in Windows Phone, is you can go into a game and pin it. So if you really play Sudoku a lot, you can just pin this one to your start bar. And then you have Sudoku as an application on your start bar. And so a lot of our users actually you'll see have a couple of their games that they play, and then when you tap into them, it takes you right into that particular game, and it bypasses all the rest. What's that?
Do you keep score of these things? I mean, do you know how many people pin stuff? You know,
No, we don't. And the other problem is that it isn't available on all the platforms. So even Windows 8, we can't do a deep link in Windows 8 to a Windows 8 sub game. And so we've actually, a lot of those features where it's Windows Phone specific, we definitely try to support, and it's the very first thing we build is Windows Phone, and then, you know, as we see fit, we try to incorporate as much of that logic into the other games. Any other? Yeah.
But you're saying that you get more money from your ads and your in-app purchases. Say, for example, last month, what would you say is the ratio?
So for which platform?
Phone.
Windows Phone. Okay, so Windows Phone is, like I said, skewed. Heavily skewed in the fact that we have a lot of Windows Phone 7 users and a lot of people that have too much money. But I would say it's maybe 10x. We get Windows Phone can be pretty profitable if you get enough users. And our game is actually very focused right now on time-based money, and that the more users we have, we try to keep them in as long as possible to get that ad money. And it sort of sprouted from the fact that Windows Phone didn't have in-app purchase to begin with. And so the only way to make money was for us to have that time factor to it. Only recently, when they introduced Windows Phone 8, and even after they launched, were we able to support in-app purchase. And so we're starting to move further away from the force you to do time things and to experiment more with paying money to get more features and things like that. But I think as that goes on, we would see a difference. And it isn't always 10x. Some months are very terrible, and some months are incredibly good for ads. Anyone else? All right. Let me know if you have any other questions. And then if there's any other, I'll send out the notes, but there's some links for code on how you can do a similar thing to Windows Phone 7 to 8 transition if you have a Windows Phone 7 device. And also it includes sort of a wrapper in how to use the API that they provide in Windows Phone.
Got a question for you.
Yep.
So is there any way you could actually mock a subscription using in-app ads or in-app purchases?
I think, with enough user input, you can do that. In that you could, you as the developer could easily keep track of when something was purchased, or at least when a license was there, or even a consumable, and then require that after a certain amount of time they repurchase it and sort of block the content. But it still would make them go through the workflow every single time that they need to go repurchase it. And so they might not enjoy that as much as something that's a true subscription where they just get automatically charged and can manage that in a separate area.
Are purchases like retained, if you upgrade to a different device, or if you lose your phone and need to get a different phone?
Yeah, so for the consumables, not necessarily, in that it's up to the developer to do whatever they want to do with the consumable. All they do is sort of get an event that you purchased it. For the durables, they actually have a true license, which will get stored on the device, and then when they switch to a different device, it pulls that down if you log in with the same live ID and everything else. For the consumables, it's sort of up to you, and we have our own mechanism that we've implemented to do a cloud backup and restore, such that if you bought 1,800 credits and then the next day your phone died, you don't just lose them.
So that means you updated their balance every day after they play the game. So
say that one more time.
So basically, if they spend coins, so you have to push that to the cloud every time they.
Yeah. The question. I should be repeating the question. The question was if they spend coins, we have to push that to the cloud, and that's sort of what we do, but not directly. What we actually do is per day, we will once per day upload just their entire data set, their entire sort of our memory that we know about. We upload that to our cloud and we store that as a data point, and then we keep track of up to 3 of those in a row. And then if they need to, they can go back up to 3 save points and restore from any one of them. But then we also have restrictions on how many times you can do that. And we let them know that if you try to do that too many times, which would cheat the system, you go spend all your coins and then you revert back. If you try to do that too many times, it will just block you.
So how do you track them between 2 devices? They have to log in with some sort of...
For 2 devices, they would have to log in with the same user. And then we would get the same user ID and we can do the lookup and everything works fine. For instance, Windows Phone to Windows 8, we don't have a model for switching. We don't have a user identity that isn't tied to the phone's identity.
Right. So say it's someone who went from one Windows Phone 8 to another one, the ID changes as well. So how do you do that?
So I believe we have a user ID that we can use that we keep track of.
That the user puts in, or is it just generated?
I believe it's just generated.
Okay, I thought it changed per app, per device, but I might be wrong.
That one I can answer. So there's a user identity based on the live ID signed in.
Oh, but
There's an anonymous ID you can use that stays the same for no matter what device, as long as the same live ID is used.
and that ID is available to any app. So
The developer writing the app, there's like a device identity that they can use.
Okay.
And you can use that to track the user on different devices.
Okay.
It's unique for
How do you get the
for app
graphics?
publisher,
You
right?
just-
Correct.
How do we get the graphics?
Yeah.
That's a good question. We actually the question is, how do we get the graphics and images? We originally just MS painted basically all of them. They're very, very simple, to be honest. The original one that we shipped was even worse than this, if you can imagine. Our UI, we understand, isn't the greatest, and that isn't really our goal to have the best UI. But we eventually did, when we had some more money, paid an artist to sort of go through our existing graphics and just make them look better. And we didn't really have any criteria besides make them look better, because ours really were terrible. And there still are. I mean, if you go back, I can show you some examples. If you go back to our really, really early on games, probably the ones that we've retired since then, we didn't update the graphics on them. And so even like this one here, for instance, oh, can't see the icon. Heads up, here's a great example. If you look at the background of this, that's an icon we made clearly in MS Paint. And so we just didn't update that one just because we didn't feel the need to. It's a retired game. We don't really care anymore. One interesting idea would be to have sort of skins that you could download from a server and then sell that as an in-app purchase. You know, like as a customization option. Because if you have a easily transferable same image but different sort of theme, then you could do that.
Mm-hmm. Related to that, so you say download a skin. So when you ship the package, all the in-app purchase, resources have to be in there, right? Or can you actually, when you do the in-app purchase, can they get new content, new graphics, pull that down from the server?
So we don't actually do that today. We don't have any notion of it, but I don't see why you couldn't send the data, save it to the thing as a document, and load that up as an image.
So it'd be up to the dev. It's not something that's supported like
right.
multi-packs.
Correct. Yeah. Yes.
So you mentioned you had this game on different platforms and the Windows 8 as well. Do you do any kind of thing with the user's progress is maintained between the phone and the Windows 8 or something?
We get a lot of, so the question is, do we maintain progress across devices? We get a lot of requests to do that. We haven't spent the time to build that. And it's actually a pretty complicated thing that maintaining state between multiple devices, potentially logged in at the same time, can have a lot of problems. And we don't have a fully baked user profile solution such that we could log somebody out on a different device if they logged in on on the existing one. So we don't do that. It's something that we would love to spend more time on, and maybe that's for our next game, or maybe it's for this one, but it can be complicated. Yep.
It sounded like you have some pretty good analytics. You were saying that some people just start and go straight to this level and so on. Mm-hmm. What kind of setup do you have for that?
So we originally wrote, and this is something that we're trying to figure out how to translate this to maybe a different model or not. But we originally wrote sort of a key event logging system when we were running under that dude's apartment, computer in that dude's apartment. We sort of keep track of a lot of key events, and when things happen, we just log an event. And that event can basically get queued up on the disk, and eventually we flush that up to our server, where we can do all sorts of querying and different analytics on it. When we switched to Azure, though, we actually removed all of those logging points. So the recent transition 2-3 months ago, we switched over to not send as much data. And we would like to figure out a new solution that sort of can give us on par level things, maybe even better graphs and different analytics. We essentially had a bunch of tables in SQL, or a bunch of rows, and we would have to build these graphs ourselves using Excel or something else. And so having a better solution maybe would be useful, but we haven't spent the time to invest in it. But even just doing the point-based one was really useful at the beginning to figure out how often do people spend in different levels before we had the stats even, or how often do they click on in-app purchase to view them, or things like that.
How's your experience, porting this to iOS?
So that's a good question. We have what's the experience supporting it? We use XNA on Windows Phone 7, and we also use XNA on Windows Phone 8 because it is a backwards compatible game. And then for Windows 8, we use MonoGame, which was relatively simple to just plug and play. Instead of XNA, use MonoGame. They implement the exact same API sets as XNA, so it was really easy to just sort of compile against MonoGame rather than compiling against XNA. And that was pretty easy. They actually used the CLR in that instance, not some mono. So it's not MonoGame. It's MonoGame, but it's not using mono. When we moved over to Android, though, we had in iOS, we have to actually use mono and MonoGame, and then Taptitude on top of that. And there were some differences, definitely, in the different platforms, but we're able to ship around 90+% of the same code on all of the platforms. So all of the games you see, we didn't have to change a single thing. Most of the UI, everything is homegrown, in our own system, and so we don't change any of it. The only thing we have to switch is certain threading APIs are a little bit different, like how do you kick off a new background thread. Things like the store, you have to we have an interface that we use for the store, but then implementing that interface on all of the different platforms to use their system is different. And then things like accelerometer and storage are the other things that are platform specific. So using MonoGame was pretty easy, I think. I mean, it took my brother, who ended up quitting Microsoft to go do this full time, it took him a month per platform, and that was mostly to fix a lot of the little bugs. Like, it took him a few days to get it up and running, and then the rest of the month to stabilize it and sort of make sure we don't have any other major problems, perf, or things like that. Yep.
Are you buying any advertisement, like Facebook or something?
We've experimented with Facebook a lot for advertising, but mostly it's like $10 here, $15 there. We also used Ad Duplex. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ad Duplex, but it's sort of an exchange model. We used that for a while, and it's hard to tell the results, but it seemed to be relatively positive results. The biggest thing we noticed for advertising is once you get featured, you're pretty much golden for a while because you get a huge boost of downloads. And so if you can get featured, you're in the gold. But for advertisements, we're sort of looking into right now, figuring out what the right strategy is between Facebook and sort of AdMob. And you can advertise in iAds on the other platforms, just regular web page ads, things like that. I think our next approach is going to actually be to go hit up the major review sites and then get a review from them. Anything else? Yes.
Okay. Regarding that, is there any way to know what is the source of how people got to your game? Did the source tell you that?
That's definitely different per platform. Windows 8 is one of the best ones because I think they're just they're able to do it right from the computer. It's not like a special device or anything. Windows 8 will give you like referrals, who sort of referred you into the store. And so you can see, if you just run a Facebook campaign that links them directly to the store, you can see that it came from Facebook. And it'll show up on a pie chart and show you your downloads. So Windows 8 has pretty good reporting and analytics. Windows Phone, I think they're working towards that as well, but I don't know how it works they don't give you as much details on how people got to your game, unfortunately. And same with the other platforms. iOS and Android are the same, that you don't really have much data. But I think it's really useful to know if your marketing campaign is working by using the referral data. All right. Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.